Abel Sanchez has one of the most revered training camps in the world. Sits atop Big Bear Lake, California, high altitude. It's actually called Summit High Altitude Training Camp. It's had many world champions come out of there. I think the best one is sitting here in the dais right now, which is a testament to the quality of where Gennady's at. Gennady, there's no question Gennady had a historic amateur career. He won the World Championships a couple times, and a silver medal at the Olympics in 2004. But when you take his amateur background and pedigree and combine that with what Abel's taught him on the professional level, he mixed in a little bit of the Mexican style from his background, and you have a very lethal combination. So with that, I'd like to bring up Abel Sanchez.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you to all for coming out and recognizing these great fighters. I'm sure that Tony's going to have Willie in great shape, so I'd like to thank Artie for working with Tom to put the fight together, and for Willie accepting it. It's getting tougher and tougher to get a quality opponent as Willie is to face Gennady, so we're looking for a tough night. I know Willie's going to do his best, and Gennady's going to do his best, and we're going to put on a great show for HBO and the fans watching. Thank you very much.
Before we bring up the main event fighters, just want to acknowledge a few more people in the room today. One person who's believed in Gennady since the first time I sent him an email after we signed Gennady, and my vision, naturally, and my promise to Gennady and Oleg was if they signed the promotional contract, then we'd make him a star here in America. The first place and the first person I thought of was Sal Federico, who's here today from Madison Square Garden. The MSG company purchased the Forum, did a complete renovation of it, and now it's one of the best venues in the world. They've got great concert events. U2 is coming up at the end of this month, and they had the Eagles last year, and so it's a really tremendous building, and I think it's going to be a treat for everyone that remembers it from before, and now to see the transformation. It's a tremendous thing. So we'd really like to thank Sal. He was instrumental in having Gennady's first fights there at the theater, originally at the Garden, and then Gennady headlined the main arena last year with the fight against Daniel Gil. Also, for my team, events like this wouldn't be possible. We have Bernie Barmasal, Melissa Moscow, Rodney Nicola, who's here, John Hornauer, and then my right-hand person, Erica St. Philip. Without them, I wouldn't be able to be standing up here talking about these type of events, so I really appreciate that. So, without further ado, I'd like to bring up Artie again, and he can introduce Willie.
Most of you in this room don't know the name, maybe some of the younger reporters do, Mickey Duff. Mickey Duff was the biggest promoter in Europe with Jarvis Astaire in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in the latter part of his career, I was a young man in the fight business, promoting fights. I've been doing it for about 28 years now. And I learned a lot from Mickey and Bob Arum and Jarvis and men of that ilk, of that era. And they taught me how to be a promoter by watching. You learn by example. Your children learn by example. And Mickey once said something to me, Artie, when you have a fighter and he's in a position to fight for the championship of the world, you're going to see what kind of guy you have. And when, especially if he's supposed to be fighting the best guy in that division. I said, what do you mean, Mick? He said, you'll see if he takes it. You'll see if he comes up with an excuse. You'll see if he says, should we do another fight first? You'll see if he says, well, it's not the right money. It's not the right venue. It's not the right ring. And I learned a lot. And those conversations from older promoters helped Tom Loeffler and Artie DeLulo, which is probably 60, so I'm not younger anymore, but help you realize what's in front of you when you're negotiating deals with athletes. And I've been doing this for like 28 years. So this young man over here, he goes out and he wins a tournament that I created a couple years ago called Boxino. I've owned it for about 25 years, is where I found another fighter, Acelino Popo Freitas, many years earlier. Goes out, doesn't know who he's fighting, because the tournament, it's a random draw. There's a reason for the story, so just bear with me. So none of the fighters in the tournament knew who they were fighting. It was all random draw. You would see a lot of the fighters who didn't want to be in the tournament until they knew who they were fighting. That's a fighter. So the random draw happened, wasn't favored to win the tournament, beats everybody hands down. Next fight, now he becomes rated in the WBA, WBC, IBF. Now he has to fight Brian Veer. Not have to, the fight came upon him. The fight with Brian Veer. And Brian Veer is looking for a fight because he had those two hellacious fights with Chavez Jr. I thought he won the first one, but we didn't win the second one. So he's made the fight, because this is going to help my career. So we made the fight. And he hands down destroyed him, beat Brian, beat him every punch, every round, and he wins a unanimous decision. Now he becomes the #2 rated contender in the WBA. Tommy Loeffler calls me, I don't know, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago. He says, well, there's an opportunity for Willie to fight the best middleweight on the planet. And he is, everybody knows that. Willie has to do his job to become the best, he's got to beat him. That's the business. That's what fighters do. You got to win fights. So I call him up, true to form, make the fight. Now he has other options. He can say to his promoter, I don't want to fight this guy. He can say to his promoter, I want to do something different, because he's now won 4 in a row. Everybody in the world has seen him. ESPN is in 120 million homes and in another 100 countries. He has now become a player. And he says, make the fight. Before the deal is in place, he says, make the fight. Back to Mickey Duff, that's a fight. That's what fighters do. Saturday night is going to be a great fight. On Saturday night, one of the best middleweights in the world is going to take on the best middleweight in the world, because he wants to be him. And that's how you make fights. Fighters fight. I want to thank you very much for having us. That is a true story, people. True story. Not one time did this kid ever say to me, don't make me the best fight. He wants to fight the best. Now I introduce you, Willie Monroe. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd just like to thank God for blessing me with this opportunity, blessing me with an opportunity to challenge for the middleweight title. I'd like to thank Tom. I just recently, you were following me on Twitter, weren't you? You were following all my tweets. I was like, who is this retweeting? But thanks to Tom, thanks to Triple G Promotions, thanks to Artie. I want to give a special thanks to my team, my head trainer, Tony Morgan, my assistant coaches, Danny Akers, Lee Davis, and my assistant trainer, TJ, and my little brother, Trent. It's been a long up and down road for me as a fighter, and a lot of people are making me the underdog, which rightfully so. I'm in a position to fight the best middleweight in the world, so it can't be 2 underdogs. I have to be an underdog, right? But I'd like to let you guys know that I've literally been the underdog since I was conceived in my mother's womb, and I don't mean that figuratively, I mean that literally. And these are the type of opportunities that I relish, you know, and like Artie alluded to earlier, every fight that's been offered to me, I've accepted. You know, I haven't turned down, I haven't second-guessed it. And I like to thank Gennady himself for saying, I'll fight Willie Monroe, because honestly, I'm a stylistic enigma to the style of Triple G, and he feels that he can beat anybody. So, I mean, I think both of us at the top of our careers right now feel that we're the best, and May 16th, one will come out on top. So God bless. Thank you guys for coming out, and thanks Triple G, and thanks for his team. God bless you guys.
That's a true story what Artie said. When I first called him up, and it is a true story that Gennady really wanted to fight a southpaw. When I first called him up, he was surprised. He said, why would you want to fight Willie Monroe? Everyone avoids him, he's a southpaw. But within 2 days, we had the deal points in place, and it wasn't, you get a sense, from my side, you get a sense on, well, we'll fight Gennady, but just not in the next fight, or maybe, you know, down the road, and that wasn't the case at all with Willie or with Willie Monroe, so we really appreciate that, Artie and Willie, for really stepping up to the plate. With that being said, I'd like to introduce someone who's really taken the boxing world by storm. As I mentioned, ever since his HBO debut, not only here in America, but internationally, he has some of the highest ratings on television. With the ticket sales for this Saturday night, a young kid from Kazakhstan, coming from a relatively small city, blue-collar city, Karagandar in Kazakhstan, will be the highest ticket-selling fighter in the state of California over the last 2 years. And that's a big statement. That's a big statement to his marketability. It's a big statement to his style inside the ring and his style outside the ring. He's a guy people like to root for. He's a guy people like to buy a ticket to come see, because they realize not only does he provide excitement in the ring, they actually like to root for him. And that's a big statement. So with that, I'd like to introduce the WBA Super Champion, WBC Interim Champion, and the IBO Middleweight World Champion, Gennady Triple G Golovkin.
Good afternoon, everybody. How do you feel today? I think Saturday night we feel much better because we will have good present for everybody. I know everybody ready 100%. You know, everybody is professional athlete. And everybody understands the situation. You know, thank you very much, of course, HBO. It's big present for California fans, not for California, but for everybody. For boxing fans, thank you very much for promotions, for partners. You know, this is a great deal. This is big deal, big present, and I promise great show. I promise great event because you know everybody ready 100%, and I think this is amazing time, amazing scene and forum in California. Welcome to home. Thank you, guys.
So with that being said, Bernie, do you want to come up and we'll pose the fighters? Let's do the co-feature first. Roman and Edgar, if you could come.